Okay. Fantastic. People are filing in. Welcome, everybody.
Awesome.
So for those of you that have joined us, we're going to probably give it about 5 minutes to allow people to filter in before we start introducing everybody. But welcome, and thanks for coming along. Oh, there we go. Ah, Barbara. Hello, Barbara. How you doing? Chris, Deepak, Diane, Emma, Fleur, Fran. Hiya, Fran. Hope you're well. Nick, Paul. Fantastic. I recognise some names there. $16. $19 more people. Can you see that, Beth?
The question, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah.
Okay, just another minute, team, and we'll get started. Nearly halfway now. See if there's any more names I recognise. Ah, James. How you doing? Or is it a nervous first 5 minutes where you're waiting for people to come in?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we will probably get started. Okay, team. So thank you for joining us on another WSA webinar. The webinar is going to be about an hour long. I'm going to be introducing Bethan Thomas, who will kind of introduce herself a little bit more from Project Seagrass. So the talk is going to be about 40 to 45 minutes. And then there's going to be a little bit of time at the end for questions. So please feel free to ask questions as you go along. We can obviously keep hold of them and go back through them. But I'm not going to ramble on anymore. I'm going to hand you over to Bethan. So away we go. Bethan.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. This is really lovely. And thank you all for giving up an hour of your evening as well to come and hear me talk about seagrass. So yeah, as said, my name's Bethan Thomas, and I'm the communications lead at Project Seagrass. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction into seagrass, what seagrass is. If you have heard of seagrass before, it'd be quite nice if you could put in the chat if you have heard of it, or if maybe this is the first time that you've come across it. Most people, I feel, haven't heard of seagrass before, but I think that picture is now changing. So it's a good idea. It's quite nice to see how many people have heard of seagrass. If you haven't, there is absolutely, that's totally normal. I feel like so many people have not heard of seagrass. It's really one of those underrated habitats that kind of just goes under the radar and unnoticed. So I'll give a bit of an introduction into what seagrass is firstly. So seagrass are just marine flowering plants. So they're just like plants on land, but they live underwater. They live in the sea. They are the only flowering plant that is able to spend its entire life cycle in the sea. And they form these extensive underwater meadows. So just like meadows that you might find on land, where you think of this incredibly biodiverse habitat, seagrass is that, but underwater and is in the sea, which is pretty cool if you think about it. So they look just like grass that you might find on land. So if you look out at your lawn, it kind of looks like what seagrass would look like, just underwater. So you can kind of see there these blades of grass. But there are many different types of seagrass. We estimate there's about 73 species of seagrass globally. In the UK, we have 4 species, but 2 true species of seagrass. So they're called eelgrass, Zostera marina, which is called common eelgrass, and Zostera nulti, which is called dwarf eelgrass, and it's just a smaller version of common eelgrass. And they are the ones that kind of really do look like blades of grass, just like the grass you'd find on land. But you get some which are kind of paddle-shaped or fern-like. So you get a high variety of different seagrass species, and they're all incredibly important. So they're not a seaweed. Seagrasses are a plant, despite what many people think. They're not an algae, they're not a seaweed. They have roots, they have shoots, they even flower. They have flowers, yes, and they have pollen as well, seeds as well. They're incredible. So they really are truly a unique ecosystem. So roots, shoots, flowers, seeds, even pollen. So if you think about pollen on land, where you might get kind of wind pollinated or insect pollinated flowers, you have that underwater. So instead of the wind, it's the current of the sea, and instead of bees, it's kind of the bees of the sea. So little marine invertebrates that help to pollinate seagrass. And as you see in this diagram here on the left, what seaweed looks like, it needs a hold fast. So it needs something to grab onto, whereas with seagrass, it has roots, and these roots extend into the sediment and can kind of spread throughout the sediment and shoot up new shoots of seagrass. So they're very, very different. They're not a seaweed. And if you take one thing away from this, seagrass is not a seaweed. It is a plant. And yeah, as I said, it has roots, shoots, even has flowers, even pollen. It's a really, really incredible little plant that lives in the sea and has adapted to live in the sea. Where might you find this plant? They're found in the shallow, sheltered coastal areas of our globe. So they are a plant, as I've said. That means that they photosynthesize and they need light in order to grow. which means that you'll often find them in those shallow areas where light is able to penetrate the water column and reach the seagrass. If it's not able to penetrate the water column, if it's not able to reach the seagrass will not grow. So you tend to find them in very shallow areas. So this is an incredible photo taken by my colleague Anuska. And I think this was the Isles of Scilly, or it could have been the Isle of Wight, when at low tide, the seagrass got uncovered, and it was kind of just an incredible setting, just walking out along the coast and seeing this incredible meadow of seagrass uncovered by the tide. So many of them are found in that intertidal region or subtidal, where the tide goes out, it uncovers seagrass. Some of it's found a little bit deeper than that. And you might have to go out and try and find that either snorkeling or on a paddleboard. But otherwise, if your best shot is trying to go out at low tide and seeing in those sheltered areas as well. So if it's too exposed, if it's too kind of exposed to the elements and to storms, it'll often just get ripped up. So again, that's why it needs those kind of sheltered areas. But yeah, so they can be found both in subtidal and intertidal. The species that I mentioned earlier, eelgrass, is more subtidal, and then dwarf eelgrass is more intertidal. But they're found across the globe, so they are an incredibly widespread habitat. So they can be found on every single continent, as you can see here, except for Antarctica. They are found in about 159 countries. In fact, more than 1 billion people live within about 100 kilometers of a seagrass meadow. So if you are going abroad or you're going on holiday, you've still got a pretty good chance of coming across some seagrass and finding some new species. So seagrass is very widespread, but sadly it is declining across this range. But why do we care? Why do we care about this plant that lives underwater? It forms an incredible ecosystem. So seagrass meadows support biodiversity, provides habitat, food and shelter to thousands of species of fish, invertebrates, mammals, reptiles and birds. So lots of birds, like migratory birds, will actually stop off in a seagrass meadow and kind of fuel up and feed on the invertebrates there. So it's an incredible ecosystem that supports thousands of different animals and marine species. So help to filter out our ocean. Their leaves help to purify water, reducing many pollutants such as heavy metals and harmful bacteria to humans as well. So bacteria in the ocean that you might find that makes us very, very ill. Seagrass is really fantastic at removing those excess nutrients from the water column. So helping to keep our oceans clean and clear, which if you've been watching the news recently is a big topic, and how, especially around the UK, how polluted our waters are. As I said earlier as well, their roots extend throughout the sediment, so they help to stabilize our coastline and helping to prevent coastal erosion. They can really send out their roots and form a large, deep network of these roots and rhizomes, and helping to prevent that coastal erosion, which again is a threat to our coastlines in the UK. And if you have heard of seagrass, you might have heard that it's an incredible ecosystem at removing carbon from our atmosphere, and it's really, really good at this because it takes that carbon and it stores it into the sediment. And it locks it away into that sediment. So many other ecosystems store carbon in their biomass. So, if you think about trees, that would be their trunk, their leaves. Whereas with seagrass, it kind of stores that in the sediment, and it can lock it away there for millennia. If that seagrass meadow goes undisturbed, if it doesn't get destroyed, it doesn't get ripped up, it doesn't get damaged, then that carbon can be stored there for thousands of years. And it's a really, really important store of carbon. It's really important that we make sure that we are looking after our existing meadows of seagrass as well as replacing what we have lost. So despite only covering about 0.1% of the seafloor, they're actually responsible for up to 18% of the oceanic carbon stored in our ocean. So they're a really incredible ecosystem if we're thinking about trying to fight both the biodiversity crisis that we're facing and the climate crisis. So as I said, they are incredibly important for biodiversity. They're really important feeding grounds for many commercially important species and charismatic species such as this green turtle here. Many species are directly reliant on healthy seagrass meadows to survive. So here we've got this green turtle, which feeds on seagrass, and it's one of its main food sources. Same goes for dugongs, a really incredible little animal, which is reliant on healthy seagrass meadows to survive. They also support lots of commercially important species, so fish that we eat, fish that we have on our dinner plates. So through their diverse use as fishing grounds, they support the creation of jobs, and they provide access to food sources such as fish. There's something that about an estimated 20% of the world's largest fisheries are actually dependent on seagrass meadows. However, despite all of these incredible things that seagrass does for people and planet, these incredible ecosystem services that we need to survive, they're globally under threat. Both human-induced and natural impacts are affecting the health of seagrass meadows worldwide. So since the late 19th century, we've lost around 1/5 of the world's seagrass meadows. And in the UK, that's actually slightly more. We think we've lost up to 92% of our seagrass cover in the UK in the last century. So there's really been a very large dramatic decline of seagrass. And the causes of this are predominantly poor water quality. So as mentioned earlier, seagrass is a plant. It needs to photosynthesize, it needs light to be able to grow. And if it doesn't get that, then it dies off, it's smothered. So this poor water quality is really impacting our seagrass meadows. That's often caused by kind of urban, agricultural and industrial runoff, but also coastal development, physical damage from things like inappropriate moorings, and the worsening impacts of climate change as well. So things like the marine heat wave that we've had recently can really have an impact on seagrass meadows. And as I said, we've lost a lot of our seagrass meadows, and so we've lost a lot of those really incredible ecosystem services that they provide, and things that are really, really important for the health of our planet. So kind of moving on, we know that if we were to continue with this trajectory, things are only going to get worse. We cannot continue with business as usual. With a continuing loss of seagrass ecosystems, we lose all those incredible ecosystem services that they provide. We lose that life in our ocean. And in fact, those carbon sinks end up becoming carbon sources, as all of that carbon is then released back into the atmosphere that has potentially been sequestered over thousands of years. That increases CO2 in our atmosphere, that furthers the degradation of our planet. So what we want is to see more seagrass. We want to see seagrass move from this path of net loss to net gain. More seagrass equals more life in our ocean, stabilized coastlines, increased food security and income, more carbon locked away, and a healthier, thriving planet with incredible marine species being able to survive, and things that we can go see when we're paddleboarding or snorkeling, and that we can go and experience that incredible life. So we really need to urgently help save our seagrass meadows. Maintaining the health of our seagrass meadows is really important for healthy marine life, healthy people. Seagrass has really long been overlooked. We need to make sure we're kind of developing implemented policies and strategies to try to get seagrass meadows on the agenda. We released a paper here at Project Seagrass not too long ago that showed that the conservation and restoration of seagrass meadows contributes to meeting multiple targets within 16 out of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So that's a global framework for sustainability across the globe. So that creates a sustainable future for people and planet, and seagrass meadows are really crucial to that. But they too often get neglected. It's kind of they're just overlooked too often. So it's really important that we try to raise the profile of seagrass meadows, which is integral to providing a path forward for successful conservation and management. And I feel like that's a little bit of what we're doing today. So even just with you turning up to listen to this webinar is helping in that mission, and helping to raise the profile of seagrass and raise awareness of how important it is and how under threat it is as well. I'm just going to go turn on the light, because I just realized it is not really summer anymore and the light in here has gone very, very low. Okay, that's much better. Also mourning the loss of summer. So with that in mind, we thought we had to do something about that. So Project Seagrass was set up. So I am an employee here at Project Seagrass. I'm the communications lead. And Project Seagrass is a global facing marine conservation charity securing the future of seagrass. And we do that through community research and action. We were actually founded in 2013. So 2023 is our 10th year, so we've been doing this now for 10 years, trying to help raise the profile of seagrass and do what we can to help save it and restore a bit of what we've lost. But Project Seagrass was initially set up by 4 scientists who independently saw that there was a need for a targeted effort to raise awareness about seagrass ecosystems globally. So it's kind of initially set up as just like a Twitter account, just trying to tweet the seagrass science and trying to disseminate the information there in an engaging way. And 10 years later, we're still going and doing really well. I'd like to say doing really, really well. So our work is really based on these 3 pillars: community, research, and action. So we're creating community around seagrass by generating awareness and understanding of these critical habitats. Everything that we do is with community in mind, is building an incredible community of people that want to support seagrass. And if you have a seagrass meadow local to you, to kind of become custodians of that seagrass and do what we can to help raise awareness of it and protect it. We also collaborate with governments, organisations, businesses, and individuals to save, protect, and restore seagrass. It really requires all of us, and I think collaboration is really key here. We, as I said before, were a team, 10 years ago, a little team of scientists who set up Project Seagrass, and we've just grown into a big team of scientists now who lead on research. So research and science is very, very core to what we do. Everything we do has to be backed up by research and science. So we lead and we champion this kind of cutting edge scientific research, which does underpin everything that we do. We also provide and advocate for open access data to enable effective conservation action and address these global challenges. And then in that, we're doing a lot of action. So on the ground action, we're out there, we're planting seagrass, we're conserving, restoring seagrass meadows all over the world, trying to advocate for restoration and conservation of seagrass all over the world. We're also looking at the different methodologies that go within that. So developing and deploying different methods, different tools to try to make saving the world's seagrass a reality. So that's what we want to do. Our mission is to lead societal change to enable the recognition, recovery, and resilience of seagrass ecosystems globally. And as we've kind of been through already, those seagrass ecosystems provide biodiversity, equitable and sustainable livelihoods, and planetary life support. So that's our mission, and that's to achieve a vision where seagrass meadows are thriving, abundant, and well managed for people and planet. And so where do you guys potentially come into this? You guys could become citizen scientists that help to achieve this mission and help to make this vision a reality. And that's why we ended up creating SeagrassSpotter, which is our citizen science program, which is designed, it's kind of like an education tool, and it's to feed into this research. It's designed to help us all learn about the distribution and status of the world's seagrass meadows. So kind of as I've said before already, seagrass is one of those ecosystems that is really overlooked. And so we really need as many people as possible looking out for it, seeing where it is. Is it declining? Is it increasing? Is there threats there? How is it being used? There's kind of like the seagrass science world is quite small, and so we need as many people as possible to kind of help us on this mission. So this is our conservation and education tool, which we hope will inspire people to learn more about seagrass and become guardians of their local seagrass meadow. You can kind of see if there's seagrass local to you with this app as well, and go check it out. And if there's not, try and find out if there is some around there. So we've actually recently relaunched SeagrassSpotter as well. So when we celebrated our 10th birthday this year, back in July, we relaunched SeagrassSpotter, and it's kind of had increased functionality. We think it's easier to use. Any feedback is greatly appreciated. We're working all the time to make it as good as possible, as good as it can be. And we've also added new features. And in that, we created a new advert, which I'll play for you now. And embarrassingly, is also my voiceover. So if we just listen to that, I might put my fingers in my ears and don't listen to it. But play that now. If you can't hear it, please let me know.
Along the shallow, sheltered areas of our coastline exists a lesser-known habitat, seagrass. Seagrasses are marine plants that can be found all over the world, where they help to create one of the planet's most important ecosystems, seagrass meadows. Seagrass meadows are rich havens of marine life, supporting thousands of different species and benefit humans and the planet by helping to maintain healthy seas, absorbing carbon, and enhancing global food security. Yet, seagrass meadows often go unnoticed. You may have seen one before and not realised. As a result, many seagrass meadows around the world are under threat, are declining, or have already been lost. At Project Seagrass, we believe we can change that. Our SeagrassSpotter program helps to increase our knowledge of the global distribution of seagrass meadows, where they are and where they're not, so we and others can work to conserve these critical habitats. With a few taps of your phone or an upload from your computer, you can help contribute to new scientific research and practical conservation measures to help save our ocean. The new and improved SeagrassSpotter now includes greater functionality to help you explore data that's already been contributed. By working together, we can turn the tide on seagrass loss.
Awesome. So that was our advert that we released to launch our new SeagrassSpotter back in July. So that's working with some really, really incredible people behind the scenes there as well. And that video was actually filmed up in Portland on the Llyn Peninsula in North Wales. So if any of you are local there, that is one of the best seagrass meadows we have in the UK, in my opinion. It's really, really beautiful, as you saw on that video. And again, it's one of those meadows that gets uncovered at low tide. So you can kind of wait for the tide to go out and it will uncover this incredible underwater world. And then if you're able to go out on a paddleboard or go out kayaking or just go snorkeling and explore that meadow, it is really, really, really beautiful. So if you are fortunate enough to have a seagrass meadow local to you, get out there, get in there, see it and go see it, see what incredible life there is. And, you know, any excuse to go to the sea, I think is a good one to take. So as kind of said there, with just a few taps of your phone, you can help to contribute to marine science. So it's both an app and it's on the website as well. So as you can see there, you can take it out and about with you. So if you are going out low tide, you can use the app and take photos. And with that, you'll be joining a global community of volunteers mapping the world's seagrass. So as you can see here, this is the SeagrassSpotter website, and this is where you've got the map function where you can explore seagrass local to you. And these are all uploads that have been taken by citizen scientists and people in the community. So we have got people all over the world taking part in this citizen science program, and it's really, really incredible to see. Each time we go onto that map and see a couple more points that have been uploaded, it's really makes us really, really happy. So if you are able to contribute to that, please do. It's really, really fantastic to try and paint this global picture, because where is seagrass? Where is it declining? Where is it potentially improving? Where is there seagrass that we never knew there was before? I mean, even in the UK, in Cornwall, there was a seagrass meadow recently discovered that we didn't know was there. So it's really, you know, the more eyes, the better. The more people we can get out there trying to find seagrass, the better, and then we can help to protect it, conserve it. So as I said just then, it's both an app and a website. So on the left there, we've got a little snapshot of the app, and on the right, snapshot of the website. So they kind of have slightly different functionalities. If you want to kind of explore a bit more, the website might be your friend there, but we are looking at adding those functionalities to the app as well. So the app actually does work offline. So again, thinking if you're out on the coast, you might not have any signal, the app will be working offline. If you were to take a sighting, you could do that from the app, and then once you're connected to the internet, it will automatically upload. But the first thing you're going to want to do is register an account. So as you can see, I don't know how easy it is to see that, but in the top right hand corner of the website there, you can see the little button register, and then when you download the app, you'll have the opportunity to create a new account as well. So the first thing to do is create an account with SeagrassSpotter, or download the app, or both, and then you'll be able to kind of see how you can help. You'll be asked to choose your region. The first thing you'll be asked to do is select that region. So as you can see there highlighted, you would just tick where we are in the UK. But if you're going abroad, you're going on holiday, it's a good idea to kind of change the region that you are in, so that you can, it kind of tailors a little bit more of the questions to that region. Because as I said before, there's about 73 species. In the UK, there's only kind of 2 true species of seagrass. And they all look very different. So if you're selecting your region, then when you're going to try and find out what species you found, it's going to be easier for you to find out which species you're looking at by having the region already there. So once you kind of you've chosen your region, you've got your sighting, there's the take a new sighting button there, so you can just head straight in with it. And the thing that we really want to stress is it can just be as simple as you want it to be, but you can also add in more information if you want that. So you take a sighting, you upload it, bish bash bosh. The good thing about the app is that it's geotagged. So if you're using the app, then you've already got your geotag on there already, so you don't need to kind of estimate where you saw that seagrass, which is why I try to encourage using the app as much as possible. But also some of the seagrass you're going to come across, you might not want to take your phone out with you. If you're out paddleboarding, you might not want to risk having your phone kind of over the edge of your paddleboard as you take a photo, in that, unless you have like a waterproof case or anything like that. Or if you were to have an underwater camera that you could use, you would then more likely be able to upload those photos via the website, and just kind of transfer that over onto your laptop and upload that through the website instead. In which case you probably already have Wi-Fi if you're at home with your laptop. If not, the app does work offline, so you can use that. And the other thing I want to kind of point out here, which is our new feature, is our absence sighting. So this is new as of July of this year, is the option to add an absence data point. So it's really important that not only do we know where seagrass is, but we know where it isn't, or where it was and it now no longer is. This is really, really important information, because we can kind of have a look at why that might be. Why was there seagrass there? Why did it disappear? Is that threat still in place? And if it is it something we can do anything about? And if that threat has been removed, is that potentially an area that could be suitable for restoration? So we could look at putting some of that seagrass back. So absence data can be just as important as presence data. So if you're in an area where you think seagrass may potentially should grow, so we're looking at those shallow sheltered areas again. If you're in a really exposed bit of coastline, seagrass wasn't going to grow there anyway, so you don't really need to upload an absence data point for that. But if you're somewhere where you think you've seen seagrass there before and it's not there anymore, or you think, hey, this is a really shallow, incredible, like really good sediment, I think seagrass could grow here, and it doesn't, then you can upload an absence sighting, because it might be that seagrass once did grow there, and now you've kind of helped with the data there to say that it no longer does. But the first thing is that if you have come across seagrass, you may not even know what you're looking at. So the really, really fantastic thing with the app, but this feature is also available on the website as well. With the app, you can kind of take it out and about, is you can use our identify tool to find out what species you have found. So it's really, really easy to use. It's literally right there on the app. Click on identify, and they would be asked a series of questions with icons like this to help you identify which seagrass species you've come across. And it's just things like, how big are the leaves, how wide are they, just little questions like that can help you identify which seagrass species you found. And the first thing when you're kind of going out and about, you also, if you haven't seen seagrass before, you might think you've come across it and it's seaweed. So it's kind of a good idea to use this tool to think, okay, does it match up with these questions? Is it actually seagrass? Then looking at that as well, if you think it might be seaweed, it's kind of look at that hold fast. Is it attached to rocks, in which case it's likely to be seaweed, or has it got roots, in which case it's likely to be seagrass? And then you can use this identify tool to figure out what species you have found. Again, if you're traveling, it's really, really nice to kind of, if you found some seagrass, to think, okay, what is that? So I still use this tool all the time to try and sometimes just test myself to see if I know what seagrass species are out there, but just to kind of have a look and see, okay, well, what have I found? And then you can then say what species that is when you upload it to SeagrassSpotter. If you've done this and you still aren't sure, if you kind of think, okay, I think it might be Zostera marina, but it actually might be Zostera nolti, you can say your confidence level with that. So you can say whether you're definitely sure that this is Zostera marina, or if you're unsure, you can say that, and that's absolutely fine. It's just really, really good to have that data point, that presence data or that absence data. We'll have moderators that periodically go through the uploads and the sightings and have a look and see whether we can then approve those and be like, yeah, no, you're right, that was Zostera marina, or actually no, we think that's Zostera nulti, or totally different species, or maybe it's not even seagrass, but we can go through that from our end and check those sightings. That's the most important thing, really, is that you've taken a photo of seagrass, it's geotagged. Again, if you're uploading through the website, you might want to estimate where you're not going to have a photo that's already geotagged. So you might want to estimate where you found that seagrass. And again, you can do that with kind of like a confidence level. Like I think it was here within about 100 meters or within about 1,000 meters or something like that. You can just roughly estimate where you think you saw that seagrass. It's just really, really wonderful to have that data point, and you keep it as simple as you like. You've just taken a photo, uploaded it. That's your job done. But if you are able to, you can add more information. So this is kind of optional. These questions are optional. You can literally just click upload, and that's absolutely fine. Or you could answer a few more questions. So how did you observe this seagrass? Were you on a SUP? Were you snorkeling? Was it just at low tide? You can kind of estimate how much seagrass there was. Again, kind of obviously you take one photo, you can take multiple photos of the same meadow. That's totally up to you. You can kind of estimate how long those leaves were. Were there any signs of reproduction within the meadow? So did you see flowers? Did you see seeds? How kind of covered in algae was it? That can kind of help indicate how polluted the water is. You can also put the sediment type that you have spotted seagrass in if you would like to. It's usually mud, sand, or muddy sand. So that's a few of the options there that you can choose. So yeah, add in as much information as you can if you are able to, and if you're able to answer those questions, go for it. And if not, you don't have to. You can just upload the photo that you've taken. So as we said before, where are we going to find the seagrass? It's in those shallow sheltered areas of our coastline. So you can find it when you're walking at low tide. You can find it snorkeling or diving whilst on a boat, paddleboard, or a kayak. And as you see there, we've literally got a paddleboard out, which is on top of seagrass. It sometimes can be as easy as that. You've literally paddled over some seagrass. It's right there. It might be a bit deeper than that, and you might just have to kind of, if you've got really clear water, you'll be able to see it. If you don't, you might not be able to. But it's just keeping an eye out where you're kind of paddleboarding. So, as we kind of mentioned in the introduction of this webinar, was that we're kind of looking at this kind of coastal or people who paddleboard around estuaries, that kind of thing. If you're using those waterways, you may well come across seagrass. So it's just keeping an eye out. As you can see there, some of that seagrass is literally poking through the surface. And if you think there's some there, go over, check it out, see if you can see anything. And if you want to jump in the water and have a closer look, then fantastic. If you just want to see, I think it might be there. Sometimes you can actually see it when you're looking, say, from a cliff top over, like viewing over the ocean. You can sometimes see like darker patches. Sometimes that's down to depth, but often that is also seagrass. Is that seagrass can create a different, looks a little bit darker from a bird's eye view. But the other great thing about seagrass is, as I said before, it kind of helps to clean our oceans. The water kind of gets a little bit clearer as you get towards the seagrass meadow because of the leaves in the ocean, well, in the water column. It traps, it stops kind of wave energy, so it traps particles, and those particles and the sediment and all of that kind of stuff floating around the water column falls to the ground when you come across a seagrass meadow, and it makes our water actually a lot clearer. So if you kind of are going over a seagrass meadow, unless we've had really stormy weather, that water is going to be a bit clearer and you should be able to see it. So if you have kind of come across seagrass, what kind of photos are you thinking you might be able to take? Essentially, anything is great. Any photo of seagrass is really, really fantastic. Even if you've taken like a bit of a blurry photo, but that was seagrass, just having that data is still really, really fantastic. If you want to get really technical, a quadrat, fantastic, but I'm not expecting you to take a quadrat out and just in case you see seagrass. But that just kind of helps us to understand how much seagrass there is. And then kind of this photo on the left, which kind of shows how beautiful a seagrass meadow is really, really nice to see on SeagrassSpotter. We quite often use the photos that people have taken on our social media to kind of thank you and be like, look at this incredible photo, or this is the first sighting that we've had in this area of the world or this area of coastline. Thank you to this person, because it really does all make a difference. But we'll accept any photos taken kind of underwater or from above the water when the water is clear enough, on the intertidal zone. So say, you know, when the tide goes out or when it's just a bit shallower, or even seagrass that has washed up on the shore. So if you've kind of gone out for a walk and you've come across seagrass there, you can take a photo of that seagrass that's washed up, and that still lets us know there's seagrass out there somewhere. That might have been washed up from a storm, like a recent storm or something, but it lets us know that there is seagrass probably nearby. So if you did come across seagrass washed up on the shore, you'd be more than welcome to take a photo of that and upload that as well. But yeah, essentially the main message there, any photos are great. We love seeing any photos of seagrass, and it's really exciting every time we get kind of a new data point. So kind of going through a bit of checklist, what kind of things do we want to make sure we've done? Download the app. It's a really lovely app just to have on your phone. You can kind of find out a little bit more about seagrass, and we're adding kind of more functions to that all the time to make it a bit more interactive, to make it a bit more fun, for you to kind of explore your local seagrass meadows, for you to find out a little bit more information about seagrass. It's a nice little app to have. Once you've kind of downloaded the app, create your account, choose your region, and if you're kind of going traveling or on holiday, you can change that region as well if you've come across some seagrass, and then that'll give you new questions when you're using the identify tool as well. You then come across seagrass, hit that new sighting button, take and upload your photo. When you're then choosing what species you think that is, you get the opportunity to use the identify tool there as well, so you can identify your species once you actually stood over it and you're having a look at it. Answer any additional questions that you can, and then hit upload. So as I said before, the app does work offline, so you can always save that sighting for later and it'll upload when you're back with Wi-Fi or with mobile data or whatever it might be. If you're not using the app, or even if you're thinking now, you're listening to me and you're thinking, do you know what, I actually think I've seen seagrass before and I did take a photo of it. I've got that somewhere on my phone, or I've got that somewhere on a camera. Upload those photos. You might have to go through the website, but upload those photos. They're still really, really important. And you can do that. Again, you just literally upload the photo. You estimate where you think you saw that seagrass on the map. You just kind of choose roughly where you think that was. You can say when you saw that seagrass as well. So it could be 10 years ago that you took this photo. You can still upload that to SeagrassSpotter. And that it's all really important. It all really helps paint this picture of global seagrass distribution and status, and those kind of photos from years ago. You know, okay, well, I saw that there 10 years ago. I'm going to go back out and see if it's still there. And that's really, really important. So it really helps us kind of get an idea of how seagrass is changing over the years as well. Once you've done that, spread the word. Go home, tell your friends and family, be like, oh, look at this, I saw this really, really cool plant when I was out on my paddleboard today, and tell people about seagrass and how important it is. It's a really, really incredible ecosystem that sadly is just going a bit under the radar. And the more people that we have talking about it, the more people we have supporting seagrass, the more likely we are able to help conserve and protect it, and really keep those kind of ecosystem services, or those benefits to seagrass, to people and planet that seagrass provides, that biodiversity, that carbon sequestration, the protecting our coastlines, producing oxygen, filtering our water. Seagrass is this really, really incredible ecosystem, and sadly it is very much under threat. So anything that we can do like this, like if you're out and you're kind of just exploring the coastline, these things really do make a difference. And if you don't come across any seagrass, or you're able to upload an absence sighting instead, an absence data point, I should say, instead, that's still really, really important. If you're able to do neither of those things, still spread the word, still try and talk to people about this, try and, just even like resharing things, just have these conversations. I always feel like it plants a seed. And then when people come across seagrass again, they're like, well, you know what, my friend told me about this actually, and it did sound really interesting. And then you can really kind of help garner more support for seagrass conservation, not just in the UK, but globally as well. So I think that's all from me for now. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble on, and I'll be happy to take any questions that have come through.
Thank you, Beth. We've had a few come in, so I'm just gonna read some out. So Chris has asked, is there a UK map that shows where the seagrass may may have existed but no longer does. Now, just a quick one on that. He did say he found a map from the 1930s, but I wondered, Beth, if there was anything more kind of recent.
Yeah, so there's a paper that I can see if I can put the paper in this chat, or if not, maybe we can send this around afterwards, or I can put it onto Project Seagrass's socials maybe. But there's a paper recently that we were a part of that kind of looked at the distribution of seagrass across the UK, the historical data that was available, and the seagrass that we kind of have now. And it's a really, really interesting paper. I think it was Alex Green who wrote that paper. And that's where we get that 92% figure from as well. So thinking that up to 92% of seagrass has been lost in the last century in the UK is looking at that historical data. So where seagrass may have once existed but no longer does, has helped us to get to that figure of up to 92%. We think it's at least 50% definitely of seagrass loss over that time period, and that's looking at the historical data of seagrass in the UK. Sadly, there is always going to be a bit of a lack of data on this matter, a lack of data on seagrass distribution, because it just hasn't really been a concern. So there hasn't been that many people looking at mapping seagrass, especially historically, but there is data out there. So it's really kind of trawling through all these different sources, try and paint that picture of what seagrass, of the distribution of seagrass in the UK over that time period. But I'd look that up for you. It's I think it's Alex Green's paper, so we can have a look at that and see if there was a map on there. But that's looking at the distribution of seagrass around the UK and the historical loss.
Fantastic. Thank you. Sam asks, are you aware of any work being undertaken working on techniques for planting seagrass that upscales it beyond what can be achieved by planting by hand?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So we are looking at quite a few different things, not just by upscaling by what we can do planting by hand, but all the different methodologies as well that can go into, that are factored into the germination rates of seagrass. So we've actually got a nursery in South Wales where we're looking at all these different factors that go into germination rate. So sediment type, as I was saying, is it sand, is it mud, is it muddy sand that it likes? Looking at all these different things that can help us to upscale seagrass restoration. But in terms of whether we can do that by hand or whether there's something else that can be utilized for that, we are actually looking at robots that will plant seagrass, and that's a work in progress. So we're working with some really incredible partners who are creating these kind of seagrass robots that plant seagrass. And hopefully, we've kind of got prototypes together, and down the line we'll be working on these, constantly improving them and seeing if that is something that is possible, is to plant seagrass using robots. I mean, getting robots underwater in the first place is quite a feat. So being able to do that and also upscale seagrass restoration at the same time is a really, really exciting project to be working on, and to see what can come out of that. And yeah, hopefully we'll be able to really, really scale that up, because at the moment we do everything by hand. We collect seagrass by hand, we process it, and then we plant it by hand as well. One thing that we also do have is what we like to call an underwater lawnmower, which is helping to upscale the process of picking the seagrass seeds. So this lawnmower kind of goes across and it just cuts, like, say, the top 10 centimeters of a seagrass meadow, which is where the seeds are. It doesn't have any other impact on the seagrass at all. Seagrass as a plant, it kind of does die off over the winter, and if you're kind of just losing that little bit of leaf material, it doesn't impact the meadow at all. But you collect all these seeds. So at the moment, I mean, I was out last month up in North Wales collecting seagrass by just donning my wetsuit, heading out and picking seagrass by hand. And as much as I love spending time in the ocean and picking seagrass seeds, it's cold. It's very cold work. You can't stay out there for that long. So if it is something that we can kind of mechanize, then it is, that's something we're looking into. And at the moment, the kind of underwater lawnmower does seem to be quite a good option at the moment.
Fantastic. Laura asks, are there any projects happening in Cornwall? I'm an environmental science student and currently taking scuba diving qualifications. I would love to be involved in planting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's loads happening in Cornwall. Cornwall is actually really home to some incredible seagrass meadows. One of my favourite seagrass meadows in the UK is in the Halford River. So if you were able to go visit that, please do. It's really, really takes your breath away. It's a really beautiful meadow. I'd recommend looking at remedies. So they're doing work in Cornwall, I think, and so is Plymouth University. So again, looking at kind of restoring seagrass and monitoring seagrass meadows.
Okay, another similar question, Beth, and it's following from Laura's question. I am also an environmental science student and a diver and keen to get involved. What is the best way to express an interest, and is there also a minimum level of dive qualification needed?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, thanks to both of you that you're really interested in getting involved. I'd absolutely love to have you on board. So there's a few different things that you could do. Firstly, if you want to dive with us, then there is a minimum level of dive qualification needed. But for me, I just go snorkeling. You can even go wading, like anyone can get involved. You don't need a dive qualification to get involved with this work either. And monitoring work is why you don't need a dive qualification for any of that. We have kind of like a volunteer database that you can sign up to, and I see if I can share the link around the group again. I'll put it onto Project Seagrass socials. One way, a good way of expressing interest is give us a follow on Project Seagrass. We're on kind of everything: Instagram, Twitter, or if you can even call it Twitter anymore, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're on all of those platforms. So drop us a follow, and anytime we have kind of volunteering opportunities, they're posted onto our social media. Sign up to our newsletter as well, because we can post some opportunities on there. So that's on our website, projectseagrass.org/newsletter. And then, yeah, you can also sign up as a volunteer onto our database. If you are on Facebook, we also have a volunteer group, so Project Seagrass Volunteers, which anyone is welcome to join. And again, that's a little bit more in depth. So if you're not on Facebook, volunteer opportunities are still shared everywhere else, but that group kind of just goes in a little bit more and people share their photos, and you can kind of see what we get up to on a day-to-day. So that's opportunity to get involved with kind of like our restoration work. There's also opportunities to get involved with other aspects of the work as well. If you're kind of based locally, so we're actually based in Bridgend in South Wales, drop us an email and see if there's things that you can get involved with at our HQ. I mean, there's always something going on, and we'd love to have you around. Otherwise, things like SeagrassSpotter, really, really incredible thing to get involved with, and you can kind of do that out and about wherever you are, and pop that onto like your CV or anything, is that you're involved in the citizen science program. And also, as I said, just like talk about it to other people, kind of get your voice out there and speak up for seagrass. But yeah, just drop us. I mean, so my email is here as well. So Bethan at projectseagrass.org, and more than welcome to drop me an email. And if you've got any other questions, or if there's any particular part of the work that you'd like to be involved in, just let me know, and I can see if there's any opportunities there.
Okay, we've got another question. Is it seagrass if it's growing upstream in a shallower in the shallower sides of the non-tidal stretch of rivers?
Potentially, if it's in like kind of the estuary, like just where the kind of sea, the mouth of the river, potentially if it's still brackish water, then yes, it could well be. So as I said before, there's kind of 2 true species of seagrass, but there in the UK there are 4, and so the others are called tasselweeds, and they're seagrasses, but they kind of grow in that more a bit more upstream. So they're still in brackish water, so it's still salt water, and they're not true seagrasses, only because they can't complete an entire life cycle in a marine environment, so that they couldn't complete the entire life cycle in the sea. That's why they're in that brackish zone where you kind of got fresh water and you've got salt water mixing, but they're still seagrasses, and you can still upload those to SeagrassSpotter as well. So yeah, it potentially could be. Try and see if you can use the identify tool and see if that comes up with anything.
Neil asks, is seagrass pollen similar to other grass species, or does it have specific adaptations for marine environments for distribution?
That is a really, really fantastic question. It's actually something we've been looking into more recently. I think the pollen of seagrass hasn't really been studied all that much. I mean, seagrass itself hasn't really been studied all that much, and the pollen kind of being quite a niche thing to look at. But Carly, who works in our nursery, is really taking a deep dive into the pollen of seagrass, and she has taken some really, really fantastic photos where we've kind of tried to look at what the pollen looks like. And I'm not going to be able to do this justice, but it's kind of like filamentous, like it's got like little hooks where I guess if it's in the water column and it's moving across, it's kind of got that adaptation where these little hooks will hook onto the flowers of other seagrass plants. So I don't really know what other grass species pollen looks like, so I don't know if that's similar to them or not, but it does have those kind of specific adaptations for being pollinated in the water column, where it's kind of, but I guess you'd get another grass species that are wind pollinated. But yeah, it's kind of a little bit swirly, and it's got these little hooks. So the flowers are kind of like forked. And so the pollen will then kind of catch onto the flower as it moves in the water column. So it's kind of, has a few adaptations to make sure that pollination is successful.
Brilliant. Okay, we've got time for maybe one or two more questions if you've got any questions coming. Donna asks, only heard about you today after watching a film at the Banff Film Festival last night about a seagrass project in Scotland run by Danny Renton called Seawilding. Are you working with them? They have an interesting way of gathering seeds.
Oh, fantastic. Absolutely love the Banff Film Festival. It's reminded me I need to make sure I get a ticket to that. Yes, Danny Renton and Seawilding, both absolutely fantastic. So we are working with Seawilding. They are a really, really incredible group of people. So Seawilding, for those who don't know, is a kind of community that has come together in Scotland, kind of realizing that, okay, we've got problems here in our oceans of these habitats being degraded, and they're just a team of really incredible people in the community who thought, well, what can we do about that? So they're doing both seagrass restoration and oyster restoration as well. Really, really incredible people. And yeah, we've worked with them, so we've kind of helped offer like technical support, ways of like our best practices for collecting seagrass seeds and planting those seagrass seeds. We helped to set up their seed processing system that they have as well. I've been up to visit them before and helped them collect some data. So I actually did BRUV surveys with them. So those are called the baited remote underwater video system. So you basically put our camera, which has got a bit of bait on it, and you see what biodiversity gets attracted to that within the seagrass meadow. We had a seal come up to our house, which was really, really cool. So yeah, we've done a lot of work with Seawilding, and they're a really, really wonderful group of people who, again, yeah, it really shows that kind of power of community. They didn't want to like just sit and see what happens to the ocean, as they could see that it was getting destroyed. So they kind of did something and banded together, and that they've done an incredible job. And I really have to see that film that was shown about them, because I think they're absolutely wonderful.
Fantastic. For the record, the Cardiff Banff Film Festival has been moved.
Oh,
so it was today, and now it's I believe it's in October now. So just for anybody who's interested.
oh, okay. I might still be able to get a ticket to that then.
So if anybody's got more questions, we've got a minute, 2 more minutes. No. Okay, I just want to say an absolutely massive thank you to Bethan for joining us tonight, and a really interesting webinar. We couldn't do these kind of things without people like Bethan, and obviously yourselves for showing up. We're hoping to have some more webinars in the future, so watch this space. But other than that, I just want to say thank you for coming, and hope to see you all again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and thank you everyone for joining me this evening as well.
Okay, see you later, guys. Fantastic. We're still here. Are we still here? Has everyone gone?
I think there's still got people.
Okay.